are still negotiating with other generation companies to secure the 670 megawatt supply in order to shield our customers against the potentially higher and volatile OSM prices.
So imaginein mo sa isang 200 na konsumo ng isang ordinaryong manggagawa every month, 600 pesos kaagad at the minimum yung mawawala sa hapagkainan by January. So, idadagdag mo yun sa taas ng sibuyas, kilo ng sibuyas, sa taas ng lahat ng bilihin ngayon.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time. I'm Ed Lingao.
And I'm Sean Yao. The big story tonight.
Consumers could be greeted with more expensive power rates in 2023 after San Miguel Corporation officially terminated its power supply agreement with Meralco.
To address this, Meralco said it is negotiating with other generation companies to secure 670 megawatts of supply. Gerard De La Peña with the big story.
Yoli has been saving electricity to prevent her electric bills from skyrocketing. During lunchtime, lights and TV are turned off and only 2 electric fans are left on at her small eatery in Quezon City.
Yung rep, wag bukas sarado, ganun. Opo. Tapos yung mga ibang ilaw, pag tanghali naman maliwanag, i-off lang muna.
Consumers like Yoli may have to cut back on power consumption some more come next year. Meralco admits that the power rate hike is possible by 2023. On Wednesday, South Premier Power Corporation, the power subsidiary of San Miguel Corporation, terminated its power supply agreement with Meralco. This means SMC Global Power is formally stopping the supply of 670 megawatts to Meralco. 670 megawatts is equivalent to 12% of Meralco's total supply. The termination of the agreement comes on the back of the Energy Regulatory Commission junking the plea of SPPC and Meralco to temporarily hike rates. The power firms called for a rate hike in a bid to recover from the surge in prices of coal and natural gas needed to fuel their coal plant in Pangasinan and natural gas-fired plant in Ilihan, Batangas. Meralco says it's now in talks with other power generation companies to fill the supply gap. The company admits, however, that power offered by other generation companies could be much more expensive.
They have different rate structures, so we need to evaluate them together to be able to see what's the best mix that will lead to the lowest cost.
Still, Meralco is hoping for stable supply and relatively lower demand to pull down prices. The Power for People Coalition said Meralco customers can expect an increase of at least 3 pesos per kilowatt hour in January, with the power supply deal still being ironed out.
Na alam natin sa konsepto pa lang ng emergency, syempre, yung papasok dyan dahil, kumbaga, parang ora di peligro yan eh. Di ba? Pag emergency, pag pumunta ka ng ER, mas mura ba ang bayad mo? Di ba? Simple lang. Mahal talaga mag-ER.
President Bongbong Marcos said that he is aware of the problems concerning power prices. With this, he is calling on the creation of more power plants.
It is a long-term program in terms of supplying, producing more energy, especially in the midst of our commitments to the international community to move the mix from traditional fossil fuels to renewables.
For News 5, Gerard De La Peña, we are One News.
And here to tell us more about the termination of the power supply agreement between San Miguel Corporation and Meralco, we have with us Energy Regulatory Commission Chairperson Mona Lisa Di Malanta. Ma'am, magandang gabi and welcome to The Big Story.
Magandang gabi po. Good evening to you, Ed and Sean, and to everyone joining us this evening.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight, ma'am. Ma'am, just to be clear, is this a termination or a suspension? Kasi, di ba, the CA just gave a TRO of 60 days, which in effect is a suspension. But this sounds more permanent.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, we were also confused as to what the action taken was by SPPC. But we received, after office hours today, before 6 p.m., we received the official notice from Meralco on this matter. And it appears from their notice that what SPPC had communicated to them was a suspension, not a termination of the power supply agreement.
Okay, and I suppose it's only for two months, as is under the TRO.
That's correct. While the TRO is in place, that's the period of suspension that they have indicated.
Right, and in those 60 days, Ma'am Mona Lisa, will they be continuing negotiations? What I mean is between Meralco and SPPC and Meralco between other possible power suppliers?
Based on the letter of Meralco, it appears that they will pursue negotiations with other power suppliers. That's the message that was contained in the notice of Meralco, and this is pursuant to the emergency power supply agreement arrangement, for which they have secured clearance from the Department of Energy.
Now, the TRO, ma'am, is for 60 days. Can we expect this issue to resolve within that time frame as well, or a lot sooner, for it to not affect, our power supply here in the Philippines? Because it's, as the report earlier said, it's about 12-13% of Meralco's total supply.
That's correct. About 12 to 13% for this PSA. There are other PSAs, as we know, that have similar arrangements. But for this PSA, it's 12 to 13%. I honestly don't know if the Court of Appeals will be able to resolve this. Of course, we are hoping that they will be able to resolve this sooner rather than later. Maybe not even necessary to consume the entire 60 days. But we have the Office of the Solicitor General representing us, the Energy Regulatory Commission, in the proceedings before the Court of Appeals. And this afternoon also, the OSG for the Energy Regulatory Commission has filed a motion with the Court of Appeals to lift or dissolve the TRO. So we're hoping that the Court of Appeals will also hear our side and act on our motion.
Ma'am, but in the meantime, can you run us through the process that will be involved in the immediate future? Kasi nga, suspension for, I suppose, 2 months, thereabouts, and Meralco will go to WESM to look for, I suppose, the cheapest electricity it can get. But how will that go? I mean, can they contract for only, for example, 2 months? And then what about the pricing?
It's really up to Meralco on how they will get to the end of line. Is really to get to the least cost possible. That's the mandate to the utility. How they get there, they have various avenues to get there. They can manage their mix. As we know, there are other suppliers of Meralco, so they can adjust the supply that's coming from their other power plants. They can also get from WESM, as you had mentioned, Ed, but they can also contract with other suppliers if they can get the best possible price out there that can lead to the end game, which is the least cost to our consumers.
Of course, a lot of the people that are protesting this are running straight to you guys because you are the Energy Regulatory Commission. Up to where are your powers when it comes to problems like this? Has there ever been a precedent? And what remedies are available to you guys as the regulator?
Okay, as the regulator, so we approve, we evaluate, we approve, we deny, meaning the authority to approve also includes the authority to deny applications for rates to be passed on to the consumers. So that's really the day job of the Energy Regulatory Commission. So as to whether there is precedent of this nature, I am not aware, because this is a fixed price contract of a large quantity, I think. I don't think there is a similar large quantity power supply agreement. We're talking about, this one is about 670 megawatts. The other contract that's also in the Court of Appeals is about 300 megawatts. So it's huge in terms of impact because the power supply volume it's huge. So to address your question, I don't think there is a precedent in this of this magnitude.
Ma'am, pahabol na lang. I'm sure you heard the voiceover report a while ago. One group claims to estimate the increase in power rates by as much as 3 pesos per kilowatt hour. I don't know how reasonable that is. I don't know where they got the figures. Pero from your point of view, is that anywhere near market rates, or is that too much? Kasi
in our initial evaluation, hindi naman ho ganun kalaki. Remember, this power supply agreement constitutes about 12 to 13% of Meralco total mix. So if we assume that that's exactly the volume that they will replace with WESM, so for this contract is at a fixed price of 4 pesos 30 centavos. If we go to WESM, the average price last month is about 8.5 pesos. So if we put that together, it's about, and then the total blend of Meralco supply will get to about an increase of 30 to 40 centavos per kilowatt hour. So that's about, for a consumer that's average consuming volume of 200 kilowatts, that's about 80 pesos additional for the total power bill.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, ERC Chairperson Mona Lisa de Malanta. We're pausing for a quick break. Right after that, the Philippine Statistics Authority reports that the country's unemployment situation has returned to pre-pandemic levels. We will be discussing this with labor economist Professor Leonardo Lanzona. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're watching The Big Story here on One News. The country's unemployment rate went down to pre-pandemic levels in October. However, job quality continues to be a concern. Shaila Francisco with the report.
Gary is now focused on his online selling business after quitting his job as a call center agent. From earning 20,000 pesos per month in his previous job, he now earns 6 digits from selling branded thrift items. He says this is better as he's also in control of his time and is able to provide employment to relatives.
Nag-switch ako into business para masustain ko yung mga needs ng family. Siyempre medyo lumalaki yung family. Bali dalawa yung hinire din tinulungan. Yung brother ko naman na isa is, since meron siyang motorcycle, kinuha ko siya para siya yung mismong mag-deliver ng mga ordered items ko.
Economists say that the shift to online selling may be one of the factors as to why the country's unemployment rate continues to decline. The Philippine Statistics Authority said unemployment rate declined to 4.5% in October, matching that of October 2019. The agency attributes this to increased economic activity brought by the holiday season.
So, wala nang restrictions. Kaya puro nag-generate lahat ng trabaho yun. Diba? Kung titingnan natin mabuti. At nagko-complement yun, both digital, pati yung physical source. Kung nagko-complement, nagkaganyan yung unemployment rate.
Meanwhile, month-on-month underemployment rate slipped to 14.2% from 15%. Underemployed Filipinos are those who are looking for additional means of income, either because of low-quality jobs. One other thing to note is the dip in the number of employed Filipinos in October. Among the sectors that saw the largest drop in employment include agriculture and wholesale and retail industries. For its part, the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, says it will continue to prioritize providing quality jobs for Filipinos. NEDA also plans to continue promoting public-private partnerships to generate more jobs. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
The country's government borrowings rose to a fresh record high in October. Philstar reports that outstanding debt stood at 13.64 trillion pesos, up by 0.9% from September. The Treasury says the growth in the debt pile was largely due to the taking on of both local and external loans. Domestic borrowing rose to 9.38 trillion pesos, while external debt increased to 4.28 trillion pesos.
And to help us make sense of all these numbers, we have labor economist Butch Lanzona now joining us via Zoom. Sir Butch, good evening and welcome to The Big Story.
Thank you, Sean.
What can you say about our jobless rate? Is this is this here to stay? Are we really back to pre-pandemic levels? Or is this kind of an illusion because we are, of course, approaching the holiday season and those are October numbers, so months na?
Actually, I think the NEDA director mentioned that the single most important factor was really the opening up of the face-to-face classes last month. It was already felt last month, so there was already a decline in the unemployment rate. But now, we have all of these secondary effects, effects on the other sectors. So if you look at the sectors where employment increased, all of these are related to education, in particular transportation, for instance. Manufacturing, I suppose there are some garments and clothing that the children need and so on and so forth. And then also construction, maybe they were building up some schools as well. All these things are related to the opening up. So this was somehow muted by the opening up of classes. In the US, they call these factors related to the COVID, to the post-pandemic effects. They call it discombobulations. So these are what we're experiencing right now are the discombobulations resulting from the opening up of the economy. But these things tend to dissipate over time. So eventually, you will feel the inflation. In fact, if you look at the sectors that have lower employment, agriculture and retail, these are the effects of inflation because higher cost of inputs, higher cost of materials. These are in fact keeping the production down, and therefore employment are actually falling in these particular sectors. And also, as was mentioned in the report, there is actually a decline in the underemployment rate, the so-called invisibly underemployed. These are people who are working 40 hours a week already, but they're still looking for work. They want higher paying jobs. They're looking for more compensation and things like that. So inflation is just resulting from the opening up of the schools. So I think that's the reason. And these things are not going to be permanent, definitely. Inflation eventually will be affecting us.
Yes, sir. Sir,
so that's how it.
Yes, sir. Sir, medyo nagchichapi tayo ng konti, but let me see if I'm getting this right. And I'd like to use some of your terms. This dissipation of the discombobulation. Sorry, I just had to use them.
The American economies, it's also studying.
Oh, sayang. Teka. Sir, we're losing you, sir.
It was also felt piece in consumption. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
In fact, it was also seen in the third quarter national income accounts. There was an increase in consumption in spite of the fact that you have inflation.
Well, sir, can you hear me, sir? Kasi we're getting choppy. Can you hear me, sir?
Okay, I think...
Rather, cannot be explained by... Okay.
Sorry, sir. The line's a bit bad. Sir, let me see if I can squeeze this in. And I hope you can hear me. Well, some of the people we talked to last night were saying, for example, Jonathan Ravelas was saying, we're looking at the possibility of higher inflation rates, maybe up to double digits, maybe even up to almost 10 by the first quarter of next year. How would that impact these numbers?
Well, definitely there's going to be a slowdown in production, and I would think that will have eventually.
Okay, I think we have lost the connection with Sir Butch. We will try to get that connection fixed. But in case we don't, I know, it was such a good topic.
It was interesting, the dissipation. Kasi unang bugso ng opening ng classes, so you can expect jobs kagad a lot of work.
But over time, it is expected to dissipate.
Dissipation of the discombobulation.
Yeah. Diba? Pero yung inflation, nandiyan pa rin hanggang next year. So we'll try to fix that.
Something
if we are not...
Some more in the next few
days. And until next quarter. For now, we're going to go on another quick break.
Proponents of the Maharlika Investment Fund have agreed to remove state insurers as funding sources. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here in One News.
You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. Proponents of the Maharlika Investment Fund have agreed to remove state insurers as funding sources. Marikina Representative Stella Quimbo said they will instead utilize profits from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. The proposed sovereign wealth fund has been met with pushback from several groups over its impact on pensioners' funds. The bill initially stated that the seed money for the state investment fund will be sourced from state insurers like the GSIS and the SSS. House lawmakers are planning to approve this bill on second reading before they go on break on December 17. For its part, the GSIS assured that it will only invest excess money into the proposed sovereign wealth fund.
Marami po nagtatanong about transparency on this initiative. Meron po tayo ditong board. Kami po ang nandoon sa board of directors at internal audit naririyan. But meron pa pong napakaraming controls. Katulad po ng hinikayat ko po na magkaroon po ng tinatawag na independent directors.
And circling back to one of our top stories, the country's unemployment rate went down to pre-pandemic levels in October. Let's welcome back labor economist Butch Lanzona, who discusses this further. He's joining us on the line. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome back.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry about the connection.
It's okay, sir. We simply had to call you back kasi the discussion was interesting. We wanted to make sure that we get everything right. Sir, anyway, I was asking kanina, one of the economists we talked to last night, sabi niya, baka pumalo ng almost 10% yung inflation by first quarter next year. How would that affect the numbers that we are looking at right now?
No, I would think that would be a key. That would be a key factor as far as employment goes. Kasi once inflation goes up, you would expect more firms to actually close down. So workers will eventually be unemployed. Should I turn off my phone?
Sir, is your TV or radio on? Kasi nag-feedback po ata.
Actually, I think my internet is on.
Oh, it's your Zoom.
Wait, that's okay.
Yes, sir, you were saying?
Yes, sir. Let's try again, sir.
All right, it seems like we really are having a hard time connecting to Sir Butch. Thank you anyway for your time this evening. Labor economist Butch Lanzona. And for the big story in sports, the Petro Gazz Angels clinched their second straight title at the PVL Reinforced Conference. Gretchen Ho with the story.
Bang! Pablo puts it away, and Petro Gazz does it. They defend their reinforced championship.
4 sets was all it took for the Angels to stay on as PVL Reinforced Conference champions. The Angels were off to a hot start, overwhelming Signal early in the first set. In the second frame, the HD Spikers managed to counter the Angels, but the Angels overpowered them to capture the last 2 sets. American guest player Lindsay Vanderweide led the Angels' Fury charge with 19 points, while middle blocker Remy Palma added 18 points, including 5 blocks. Outside hitter Myla Pablo registered 17 markers, including the cross-court kill that sealed the championship for the Angels.
Siyempre, sobrang happy kasi na-maintain namin yung back-to-back championship. And then, syempre, grabe din sacrifice ng team namin. Yun yung sabi nga ni Cheng na walang pahinga. And then, yun yung sabi nga namin, last push na lang.
I'm feeling great. I'm so happy to do it with this team. This is one of the most hardworking teams I've ever been on, and I think we really showed that in our finals run.
After winning the Reinforced title twice, the Angels are hoping to carry on the momentum up to the All-Filipino conferences.
Siguro i-work on pa rin talaga yung system na binibigay doon sa locals. Mabigat talaga yung laban sa All-Filipino. Unti-unti, kahit nakukuha naman namin yung finals, konting trabaho pa talaga siguro. And siguro soon makakasukit naman pati sa Philippines.
Meanwhile, the loss gives Signal the silver after settling for back-to-back bronzes in the past 2 conferences. The Creamline Cool Smashers finished with a bronze medal after defeating Cherry Tigo in 4 sets. It's a bittersweet victory for the Cool Smashers after outside spiker Eliza Valdez went down with an injury in the 3rd set. In the PVL Individual Awards, Gia de Guzman of Creamline received the Best Setter Award. Eliza Valdez from Creamline and Myla Pablo from Petro Gazz were hailed as Best Outside Spikers. The Best Middle Blockers were awarded to MJ Phillips from Petro Gazz and Rose Doria of Signal, while the Best Libero Award went to Buding Duremdes of Cherry Tigo. Mylene Paat received the Best Opposite Spiker Award and was hailed Conference MVP. Lindsay Vanderweide, meanwhile, was named Best Foreign Guest Player and Finals MVP. The teams will have their rest before the new season of the PVL returns on February next year. Gretchen Ho, We Are One News.
And that's a big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph or onenews.com.ph for in-depth analysis. I'm Ed Lingao.
The big story is also available via Signal Play. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I am Sean Yao. Stay safe, Philippines, and happy holidays. We're down to our last 18 days before Christmas.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.